Hello friends, it's the first Monday of the month, and that means there's a new kit from Hero Arts. Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula, and welcome back to my channel. I had a super busy weekend with a quick 3-day trip to Poland. We go there to shop for IKEA as there isn't one in Ukraine, so I'm doing this video in a bit of a hurry. I have to apologize, I also do not have many card examples to share, just 2 projects this time, but I'm hoping that these will give you some ideas on how you can use your kit. Enough chit chat, let's dive in. The first card features one of my all-time favorite stamping techniques, pattern stamping. I used nearly all images from my kit to stamp a wild, tropical pattern and colored images using my Copic markers. Now I'm going to begin by explaining the things that you shouldn't do, and also by pointing out my mistakes. I will show you one pattern that went all wrong, and next we'll show you a similar pattern using the exact same supplies, but one that ended up looking so much better. Here you can see the images that I picked for the background. I arranged them on a sheet of cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so the front of a card. Next, used my Misty stamping tool and my Hero Arts Intense Black ink and stamped all of these images at once to create a one-of-a-kind random pattern for my card. Now, if you look closely at my finished card, you'll notice that I have a different pattern here. Here I have a cheetah and a tiger, a monkey and a toucan, while on the finished card I have an elephant instead of a tiger and no monkey at all. I made this adjustment due to colors used to color the background. Let me explain. Things look good in odd numbers. So, for example, 1 or 3 or 5. If you color your cheetah and tiger in orange colors, you will also need to color another medium to large element on this pattern orange for the entire background to look pleasing to the eye. I did not have any other element on this pattern that would have looked good colored in orange. I also stamped a flamingo, and that was a mistake since I needed to color the flamingo pink, and that color looked rather odd with the rest of the colors used for the pattern. So I actually ended up coloring flamingo orange, which also looked very odd. Another mistake I made was using several shades of blue to color the greenery. It looked good in theory, I imagined it, and it looked really pretty in my head. But once I added all of the other colors, it ended up looking very odd. The colors were out of place and the whole pattern just looked wrong. One final mistake that I made when coloring this background was rushing things. I really didn't want to add shading and only used one solid layer of color to color each image. So no shadows and no highlights, just a flat coloring. And when you do that, the image ends up looking really flat and absolutely unappealing. Okay, so here's that pattern pretty much done. All of the images are colored. You can see that I colored the flamingo orange to match the cheetah and the tiger, and also used the same orange colors to color the coconuts and the pineapple. Not the best choice. This pattern bothered me a lot because I had too much white space in between the images. To fix that, I decided to stamp some solid images in blue and green inks to fill that white space in. It was another mistake as it actually didn't make the background look any better. In fact, it ruined it even more. The solid stamping looked completely out of place and it really did not have a desired effect on the finished card. My second attempt at creating this card and this pattern was much more successful. Here's what I did to make it better. I began by using less different kinds of images. So I didn't use every image that came in my stamp set, in my kit, but only select images. I clustered those images together, more closely together, when building the background. I made sure to fill every little corner with a stamp so that I had less white space or open space on the finished card and the finished pattern. I used one large image of the elephant. This was my starting point. Next, I added lots of leaves and the image of a cheetah, which is the second largest image in size on this pattern. And finally, I added smaller images around the 2 main animals. Having stamped the first cluster, I reused the same images to build a pattern and extend it further beyond this sheet. Now, I also rotated my images this time. I didn't change the orientation of the animals, but I did flip some of the leaves upside down, or I tilted them to the left or to the right, where it made more sense to do so on my card. Finally, I used a cluster of dots from one of the add-ons this month to fill the gaps, and I stamped those dots in black ink, so I didn't use any other colored ink for my card. Where the dot grouping was a bit too large, I used a piece of paper to do some masking to stamp just a few dots. When I got to the coloring part, I only used greens, skipping the blue colors, and also used several shades of green to add shadows and highlights to make my images appear at least slightly dimensional. The main marker colors I used were YG03, G99, and G94 to color the greenery. Next, I used BV08 and V17 to color some of the flowers and some of the leaves, especially those that looked like succulents. For some reason, I imagined that you would see a lot of purple in a tropical forest. I don't know if that's true, but that's how I pictured it in my head. Next, I used W5, W3, and W1 to color the elephant, Y38, Y17, and Y35 to color the cheetah, E33, E15, and Y26 to color the coconuts, as well as C5, C7, and C9 to color the toucan. I also used a white pen to add spots to the snake and also fix any of the Copic marker bleeding that I had on my background. Next, I added a stamped sentiment and also a couple of enamel hearts in between the images where I still had some white space. Now, pattern stamping is something that I absolutely love, as there doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason to your card, as it would have to be on a card featuring a scene, for example. To me, pattern stamping is very relaxing. It's a fantastic way to play with your stamps and just have fun. Now, I did mention I had another card idea to share, and this one features a little scene. Here, I white heat embossed a new background stamp from Hero. This is Leafy Bold Prints, and I used regular white embossing powder on Azalea cardstock, also from Hero Arts. I ink blended a sunset-like background using Hero Arts' new reactive inks. By the way, be sure to watch my previous video showing these inks in action. Just click the card in the upper right-hand side corner to watch that video. For this background, I used Lemon Drop, Creamsicle, and Taffy ink on distressed watercolor paper and spritzed it with water to help the ink move and also to give me those pretty spots on the paper. Now, I did mention recently that I'm not into the whole water-activated look, but sometimes I do use this technique, and I do like it. I trimmed the sunset background down, matted on a white card, and foam mounted on my card. Next, I had previously stamped, colored, and cut out a few additional images from the Hero kit for June. I have a branch, an elephant, a cluster of monstera leaves, a flamingo, and also a snake. Here, I'm using a mix of regular and thin foam adhesive to foam mount these elements on the card to make a little jungle sunset scene. I cut the branch to make sure it fit on the card, but I also reused the leftover piece together with the flamingo as I didn't really want to waste it. I also had a monkey, and I thought about adding it to the branch at the top there, but I figured that this card already had enough animals and I didn't need to add the monkey. As you can tell, there wasn't a space reserved for the sentiment, so I stamped one on a strip of white cardstock, and I just added it vertically to the right of my ink-blended background. It's an unusual placement, but it adds a nice something extra to the card. Here's a look at the finished cards I made with the Hero Arts June My Monthly Hero Kit. I hope you'll give this idea a try. If you do, please share online and tag me. I love seeing what you guys are making. On the screen, there is a link to a playlist with all of my Hero Arts videos. Subscribe now not to miss any new card making tutorials. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.